All right, so as we approach three-dimensional objects and continuing, we're going to get into more detail and what we're going to do today. And primarily today, we're going to focus on our best friend, the prism. Not prison, where none of you are headed, no doubt, but a prism. So we're going to find the surface area. So first off, we need to understand what surface area even means, but we also have a lot of vocabulary to consider. So first off, what are my bases? So bases are parallel and congruent. Word to your grandmother. Parallel and congruent. So if we look at this hexagonal, this guy right here that is in yellow on my page is a base. And the buddy in the back is also a base. However, in this rectangular prism, you have choices. I can call the top and the bottom bases. I can also call the front and the back bases, depending on your perspective. The front is a base and the back is a base. Now, so you have choices on this one. Now, in this case, it seems to imply that the bases are going to be this left and right one because of the shading there. So I would probably call these ones my bases. Again, they're congruent and parallel. That's the key. And the same thing with this, which almost looks like a barn, is my pentagons here are going to be my bases. Okay. Next, the lateral faces. Good. So the bases that are connecting the faces that are connecting the bases. In other words, the non-bases. Aces and bases and faces and... So notice the pentagonal has 1, 2, 3, 4, has 5 lateral faces. The hexagon has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 lateral faces. And this one has front, back, top, and bottom. So there would be 4 here. Notice that the number of lateral faces, that's not a hashtag. Notice that the number of lateral faces is equal to the number of sides of the base. Not that you need to know this, just saying it's an interesting observation. This is a hexagon, so it has attached to it 6 lateral faces. So this puppy is a leaner, leaning, like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, and this means that it's upright. That's just a quick way to look at it. And the height is the distance between the bases. All right. So what we can do is unpack these three-dimensional objects. Take, for example, if we have a box, and you do not need to draw this, but if we have a box, say you get a package in the mail from Amazon, and you have a box, well, it turns out that when you flatten this box, or to put it in the garbage, you now can flatten it to be something like this. Now, most of you will fold it, but you'll have something where you've got with wings like that, and then there's one more base here. So when I fold it all up, it becomes a three-dimensional object. So we can, this here, by the way, is called a net. We'll touch briefly on that. But when you unfold a three-dimensional object to make it flat, this is what we get. So what we're trying to do, if I want to know how much cardboard Amazon used here, is I have to find the area of each piece and add them together. Okay? Add each piece together. That's one way to do it. Just rip apart the box and find the area all over the place. However, turns out that there is a little bit faster way to do it, and this is how we accomplish it. The surface area is equal to this. I have 2 bases, so I'm going to find the area of 2 bases plus pH. Now let's define what that means. capital B, notice please use capital letters here where I write capital. Write lowercase where I write lowercase. Area of the base. So for example, if the base is a triangle, you use a special formula for the triangle. If the base is a pentagon, you use a pentagon formula. Undo that. P means perimeter of the base. So notice everything is in terms of the base. We're going to find the area of the base, the perimeter of the base, and H, of course, means height. Which, how do you know what height is? It's the distance between the bases. So everything we're doing here is about base. Find the area of the base, perimeter of the base, distance between the bases. And then we're going to plug stuff in. Okay. So, just to define, what does surface area mean? It is the area of all the polygons and circles, so all the faces combined. So lateral area would be area of lateral faces. Now we already defined lateral faces to be the not bases. So let's walk through an example. How are we going to find the surface area of this right prism? Well, number one, we need to identify what the base is. What's the base? Now, in this case, I have options because remember, the base has to be parallel and congruent, and that's it. So let's call the bottom the base here. Hence, the top is also the base. So it's a rectangle. So the area of the base, this is where it gets confusing, is, like I wasn't confused before, is base times height. What? The area of the base is base times height. What do I mean by that? Capital B is something different than lowercase b. Capital B means the area of the base. Lowercase b means just that length right here. This base times this height right there. Oh wait, there's a height here. Yes. This is the height of the polygon, not the height of the whole thing. So beware. Which is why some people like to consider it, instead of base times height, they do length times width. Because then we don't get bases and heights confused, okay? It doesn't matter which one you choose as long as you consider it. So notice this one here. This one, I would call the length here 12, or the base, and the height / width is 6. So that's the area of the base, which is equal to 72 inches squared. All right. Okay, so according to my super secret formula, which is surface area is equal to 2b plus ph, I need to also find the perimeter of the base and the height of the whole object. Notice here the height is going to be 8. Why? Because that's the distance between the two bases. So here, I'm just going to call this one h, which is a different h than before. So how do I find p for perimeter? Well, p for perimeter is simply the perimeter of the base down here. 12 plus 6 plus 12 plus 6. 12 plus 6 plus 12 plus 6. 12 plus 6 plus 12 plus 6. Some of you may remember 2L plus 2W. And this here becomes 36. So here's what we're now going to do. I'm going to substitute in the 72 for capital B, the 36 for capital P, and the H is 8 right there. So 2 times 72 plus 36 times 8. To get 432 inches squared. Because it's an area, it's inches squared. Look at number 14. Before we move on, the first decision we need to make is what are my bases? So please tell your homie, what's the base? All right, top and bottom is probably a very logical choice here. So we need to calculate two things. Number one, I need to calculate capital B, and I need to calculate capital P. Here we do. All we have to do is the length times the width, which is 2 times 2. So it's 4. I'm going to currently ignore the units. I'm not going to write centimeters squared, because at the end that will happen. Distance between the bases, so my h is 8. It's a coincidence that the height is the same as the perimeter. So now I'm going to start with my super secret formula, because the more I write it, the more it's memorized. Oops. pH. pH balance for women.
Oh my God.
We substitute in, I have twice 2 times 4 plus my perimeter ochito loquito and my height also ochito loquito. Ocho means 8, ito means small, and loquito means crazy.
So small crazy.
Yes. All right, and so let's finish this guy up. We get 64 plus 8. 72 inches squared. And correction here, it is centimeters squared. So in this situation, my right triangles are the bases. Not the top, not the bottom, but the front and the back. Okay? So when I am finding capital B, I don't use base times height. What do I use? 1/2 base times height, or 1/2 L times W, okay? So let me use LW so we don't get the B's and the H's confused. Notice, this produces a completely different formula right here. This is based entirely on what shape I have for the base. If it is a square, I might say side squared. If it were a pentagon, I would use the 1/2 AP, like we did a while ago. Okay, next, I need perimeter of the base. Now please, in this case, the base is 1/2 L times W. So I'm going to say 4 times 3, cut that puppy in half. Don't cut puppies in half, not good. Is a 6. Up. Shh. I'm looking for the perimeter, folks. So I need to know this side right here to find the perimeter. Well, I recognize I have a right triangle, so I can use Pythagorean theorem to find out this hypotenuse. Turns out this is a Pythagorean triple, so my perimeter is the 3 plus the 4 plus the 5. All right, so my perimeter is a beautiful number, and it is 12. And the height here is the different height. Don't think up and down in this case. Think the distance between the bases. So h is 3. Now we can plug this into our super formula. My surface area is equal to 2b plus ph. So here we're going to substitute. And then we simplify. And our final answer will be inches squared. 48 inches squared.
Hi.